I'm here to make a comment on some of the things that I've heard and some of my thoughts. The first is going to be about the chief of police. I think that we need to have someone that's held to the bar that he has as having this position. Even though this was said 2 years ago, these are his thoughts. These are statements that he's made. The fact that it hasn't come up before, well, probably have people who agree with him. That's fine. Everybody has their First Amendment rights. But as someone who is the chief of police in a community, to have someone making these statements, writing these things, and people agreeing, we have to have confidence in our mayor. How could you have confidence in a person who has racist views? Because besides the Black Lives Matter statement, he made racist statements within that paragraph that he wrote. And I find that very disturbing, having many people in your community to have someone who has these beliefs. We need better than that. It is disturbing to think that someone could hold that position and have those thoughts and still have them and then hold the position anyway. I mean, everyone has their First Amendment right. You could say and think whatever you want. But now you're dealing with people. You're dealing with a community. You're dealing with people having to have confidence that you're not discriminating, that you're not holding these racist views, that you're not misinformed. So I find that to be an issue with the chief of police. The other statement I have to make, these are thoughts that I have, is about the Black Lives Matter vigil that was held this past week. As far as the Second Amendment right groups, there were many threats made. But also, we have the Second Amendment rights group that was at the event. They came and they seem to have authority of the police. When you say that the mayor has told you that you can come out and you can sweep the event, I believe we have police for that, the Alaska State Troopers for that, and I can understand them being in plain clothes. That's fine, because many policemen have been attacked. The other problem that I had with that is the terms that were used for this group. He said, you could bring your rifles, put them in your trunk, don't come kitted up, don't wear your camel. That's very strange to me for a vigil. The other phrase that I strange was that the mayor said that she could not tell a group to stand down. They should not be standing up. You can come as a citizen to the event. When you have to say that you cannot tell a group to stand down, those are jargon in terms of war, of being in combat. And those are my thoughts on the event and as far as Chief Shelton.
Thank you. Is that all that we have? Or Eugene? Okay. Because Mike's already. Is there anybody else out there, Mike, but you? No? Okay. Okay. So did you want to testify? Okay. Thank you.
Can we test the mics because I'm standing and everyone else is sitting? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, let me start the timer.
Yes, you're fully in the picture as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay. My name is Eugene Haberman, Alaska resident for over 42 years. Approximately 20 of those years, an Anchorage resident, Trinity resident of the Valley. People know me as I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, the decision made by the governing body is more likely in the public interest. It distresses me as I witnessed the way this meeting was arranged, in that the idea of a conversation with the people in government was so distant. Almost everyone for the public was outside the doors. Yes, technology was used, but that's not been shown good for a complete record of what's going on. People need to see each other face to face, but that did not happen here. Last Thursday night, Fred Myers, I addressed concerns about this meeting being held here because it was going to be a protest rally Saturday, and I encouraged the mayor, you need to change the place of location, because the situation is, I'm the token member of the public that was allowed to be in this room. 2 members of the press and the rest staff. Is that fair? And the idea of a conversation with the people is not put people outside those doors. Arrange a setting where we're all together, hearing each other and learning from each other. Now, the statements made by a number of people tonight are concerning. But the fact that's most concerning is the conversation did not happen with everyone present to hear each other. The same old story. And I want to note this thing. Part of the reason the setting has been in this way was because of the World Health Emergency. But I've stated for a number of months is, in a World Health Emergency, it's even more important to have the conversation with the people, not less. And what the borough has done and this council members here have done is continue having less of a conversation with the people. How do you correct that? I've been pleading, I'm on my 9th year pleading with the council members here, Anchorage Assembly members. As you know, I attend a lot of meetings. I connect the dots probably more than anyone else because of my presence. And it's been frustrating over the years. But it's been continuing to be a policy of indifference to my statements, more bullying, intimidation, and threats. More and more people in the public are glad I'm speaking up. And more people tell me that they don't want to be part of it because what's the use? That's why they don't attend these meetings. That's why I tend to be one of the few people at these public meetings. The fact that that's happened and continues to happen, the fact that you arrange this meeting in such a way to keep the public outside those doors, one word says it's despicable. You could arrange a situation in closing where you change the calendar date to schedule it and made arrangements with the Borough Assembly to have that meeting there and more room for people to be engaged. And the idea of each of us listening to each other. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else out there? Everybody's already okay.
Heather? Is there anyone else? No. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, guys.
So is that where it's supposed to be?
Oh,
Can you see?
yes, let me come stick here. Oh, it's too okay, let's get this. Cut a little bit there.
Okay.
Okay, still a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, Madam Mayor. Okay, great. Thank you. I do have written testimony that has been requested to be to the record. It's a number of them, so let's get rolling. Also, I want to let the council know, be aware that as one of the things that we had spoken to the public about when they came in is we did provide sheets of paper to everyone that gave the address to listen to Radio Free Palmer by audio or video.
Okay.
The internet here in the chambers was not for the video. The audio has been available the entire time. I have confirmed with some staff who connect that way that they did hear and were able to hear the entire time.
Okay.
But Mike Molesky has been streaming on live Facebook. I have found that and put it on our Facebook page.
Okay.
So to post to for people who've been able to come in. So we do at this point.
Now we have both caught over on Facebook, but also our normal review on YouTube is functioning well. You're well covered.
Feel free, Palmer, as he said. Now the internet is back. Radio Free Palmer live video is working. The Facebook live video is on. As I said, has remained connected the entire time. So page to get connected to either of those, as we have the link to the video, YouTube, as he had mentioned. This has been received last week. The city manager, Brett Hansen, that was received this weekend yesterday and today have been included is what I will be reading into the record. Like I specifically said, please, absolutely read this into the record from correspondence last week. In Washville, making sure that the council, city manager, that you all have, been folded in where needed to be folded in on that. The reading into the record has been sent to the city council at 7:19 p.m. The reason after meeting is because this will be all read to the record, but that they have it in their hands as well. So they have that. It will be available. So I have three topics.
Okay.
First one is the council's code of ethics. The second is the CARES Act information memorandum, and general public testimony regarding what we heard on quite a bit of subject tonight regarding current action. So the council's code of ethics. Received. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and staff members. Our community group supports passing the concept of the memorandum called IM 20006 Code of Ethics to further promote ethical behavior within the Palmer City Council. We look forward to serious and robust discussion regarding this memorandum and how it passed into a City of Palmer ordinance. We agree especially with the following wording taken from the IM 20006 attachment. Number 11, use of public resources. Members shall use public resources which are not available to the public in general, parentheses, example, city staff time, equipment, supplies, or facilities, close paren, for or personal purposes not otherwise authorized by law. Sincerely, Lisa Albert Konecki. Catherine Bishop, Mary Olson, St. Michael's Local Organizing Ministry. Testimony received regarding information memorandum number 20-007, CARES Act. By Stephanie Berkland. Dear leaders in government, please find the attached letter from Thread urging you to allocate a minimum of 10% of CARES funding to child care. Child care is critical infrastructure in our communities needed to help us reopen safely and recover our economy. Please let me know if you have questions about child care or would like more information about the needs of early childhood education in your community. I'm happy to be a resource in your decision making. Thank you for your consideration and leadership during this time. Thank you, Stephanie Berkland. Dear council members and assembly members, Thread, Child Care Resource and Referral Network thanks you for your leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic. As reopens, Thread urges you, Thread is the name of the organization, that when I've been saying that. Thread urges you to give support to licensed child care, a community infrastructure needed to reopen safely and responsibly. Specifically, we urge you to invest a minimum of 10% of the federal CARES Act has been on the front lines of the pandemic. Nearly 50% of licensed child care programs were temporarily closed. Child care businesses operate on razor-thin margins and have fewer resources available to them than public schools. The COVID-19 pandemic has pushed many of these small businesses to the brink of permanent closure. We must ensure child care is there to support Alaska's families and businesses. To do this safely and responsibly, it requires child care programs to implement new health and safety measures for the physical and mental health safety and well-being of children, staff, and their families. First bullet point. Second, hire and train new staff to replace these existing in the field due to health concerns and or other employment opportunities. Third, increase staffing to cover substitutes needed for employees who are out, and accommodate for statistic groups and additional sanitizing and health checks. 4, provide smaller group sizes and more space per child to ensure physical distancing. 5, have access to necessary supplies, example, cleaning supplies, diapers. dollars. This aid to make it through the initial crisis period. They're urging the state of Alaska to fulfill its promise to stabilize the sector and ask that you join us in this request. Please ask DHSS Commissioner Adam Crum to use his authority and Department of CARES Act resources to fully fund the child care payments for April and May. Recommendation 2. Prioritize ongoing funding for local licensed childcare. THREAD recognizes the support needed for childcare exceeds the State of Alaska Capacity Funding Program, and the Alaska State Legislature has recently allocated CARES Act funding to your local government. THREAD recommends you prioritize childcare by allocating a minimum of 10% of your federal CARES Act funding to support local licensed childcare through 2020. This funding would be in addition to the State Capacity Funding Program. Recommendation 1. The City and Borough of Juneau recently voted to approve $1 million for child care sustainability grants. We urge you to follow their lead. An investment in childcare will produce one of the highest returns for generating economic recovery in your community. For every childcare teacher that is supported to return to a childcare program, an average of 8 parents are able to return to work. THREAD advocates that any local financial aid for childcare is administered with no restrictions and ease of access in mind. There are several vehicles available for deploying these benefits to ensure aid reaches programs swiftly. One example would be to administer block grants by licensed childcare program type. THREAD is able to assist in advising and or deploying such assistance. We also ask you to consider how to support and provide childcare with critical supplies to protect themselves, the children they serve, and their families. Access to cleaning supplies, PPE, and other safety precautions are desperately needed. THREAD is gaining public support for this recommendation through an open petition calling for state and local support of $10 million per month for childcare throughout this crisis. The petition has over 600 signatures and counting. threadalaska.salsalabs.org/promise to childcare. Capitalize those things. Almost done. Alaska's reopening and economic recovery depends on childcare being there for families. THREAD recognizes the struggle many families are facing during this pandemic. Prioritizing support for licensed childcare programs means parents will have access to care as they make decisions about work and how best to support their families at this time. As you make decisions in supporting your community during the COVID-19 pandemic, the above recommendations are intended to provide guidance for ensuring children and families are healthy and safe and child care survives. We are happy to be a resource in your decision-making, and thank you for making childcare a top priority for stabilizing your economy and community infrastructure for families. Sincerely, Stephanie Berkland, Alicia Burka, and Joy Lyon. That was the longest. It was regarding the IM.
Okay.
The rest is public testimony. That's just general public testimony.
Okay.
A lot shorter.
Okay.
Stephanie Allen. Dear Norma, I would like to submit testimony for tonight's City Council meeting. First, regarding ordinance number 20006. This is not. I didn't read this one. Amending the zoning map for Cedar Hills to rezone parcel from commercial limited to public use. Many benefits exist for expanding our community's emergency services infrastructure. As a resident of the Cedar Hills subdivision, I see the value in growing emergency infrastructure, yet I'm concerned about adequate noise buffering between the ambulance station and the neighborhood, which consists of 300+ residents. It would be critical that a sufficient barrier and noise buffer be incorporated into the development. With the conversation that involves Cedar Hills, it is noteworthy to mention that the subdivision doesn't have a connected path or trail into Palmer yet, although it is in the city limits. Staff member Sandra Gurley identified this need more than 10 years ago in conjunction with Safe Routes to School. In 2012, a trail from Cedar Hills into the city was presented at the City of Palmer's Capital Projects Fair and got the second most votes from the community, just behind Grow Palmer. This continues to be a top 10 priority for the city's Park and Recreation Board as well, but with no progress. With more than 300 homes in this residential area, pedestrian dangers exist with no safe routes or paths. City neighborhoods should provide path or trails that invite walking, biking, bicycling, connectivity, physical activity, transportation options in play. I ask that the planning and development of the ambulance station not only address effective noise buffering, but also includes a solution to a safe and dedicated trail or path that connects Cedar Hills to the existing trail system within the City of Palmer. Second, regarding Information Memorandum 20, 007, Committee of the Whole for General Discussion regarding CARES Act funding. What a blessing to have this federal funding coming into our community to help with expenses related to preventing to and responding to COVID-19. In addition to the eligibility city expenses for modifications, adaptations, incurred payroll expenses for responding to the pandemic, and purchasing of PPE and other necessary supplies for city staff, please consider setting aside some funding that is dedicated to individual needs such as utility assistance, rent mortgage assistance, and child care assistance for Palmer residents. Unemployment for those affected will end in July, and many households are struggling. In addition to helping Palmer businesses return to work, please also consider dedicated some CARES funding to infrastructure, which is also very much needed and identified during the pandemic, such as enhancement to technology, connectivity, and distance delivery of services. Thank you so much, Stephanie Allen. Maggie Obi-Trammell. Dear Mayor DeVries and members of the Palmer City Council, I am emailing to give public testimony on the recent suspension of the Palmer Chief of Police. I was very pleased to see the City of Palmer react so quickly after comments made by the Palmer Chief of Police on social media were brought to light. I would like to see further action taken. As a leader of the Palmer Police, the Chief of Police is responsible for having concern for all members of our town and should be a role model for other police officers in our community. I would like to see him removed from his position as Chief of Police for Palmer. Thanks for your consideration. Sincerely, Megan Obi-Trammell, Palmer resident. William Obi. I would like the following statement to be read at the Palmer City Council meeting during public testimony. Dear City Council members and Madam Mayor, I am the Executive Director of Daybreak Inc. I have had a business office in Palmer for the last 20 years. I am very concerned that our current police chief does not believe it is his job to protect all the citizens and workers of our fine city. If you share your bias about Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movements, you are marginalizing the residents and workers who are part of these movements. These are not terrorist groups and should not be treated as such. The police chief needs to be fired. I believe your mayor has this same sentiment concerning Black Lives Matter and should be censored by the council. Thank you for listening. Bill Obi. Ralph Basner. Please insist on hiring public servants whose views are consistent with the values our City of Palmer holds dear. For the most part, I greatly admire the committed individuals who serve and protect our community. However, as witnessed in the national trauma we are currently experiencing, it is obvious our police departments must be held to the highest standards. Among them is respect for the diversity of the communities they serve. I urge you to properly vet the background of all your employees, but especially the Chief of Police for the City of Palmer. Based on the comments as seen on social media, it is my hope you will consider other candidates for Police Chief. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Respectfully, Ralph Basner. This is from Ivy. I have to find that name again. Hello, my name is Ivy Beck. Please have this written into the public record of Palmer, Alaska. Chief Dwayne Shelton is an honorable man, and anything that he may have and may say in the future regarding his personal opinions does not affect his ability to lead Palmer as Chief of Police. We, the people of America and Alaska, have the right to our freedom of speech without it affecting our jobs, and should never affect our jobs to the point of losing it. Thank you. From Margie Beck. Dear Mayor, I am a nearly 30-year Palmer resident, and my husband and I have raised 2 daughters here, and both still live with their families in the valley. One in Wasilla, but you can't always bat 1,000, ha ha, exclamation point. Palmer is very dear to all of us, and we are distressed to see it starting down this crazy and dangerous road of, quote, political correctness, unquote. This is not what we are. The police chief did nothing wrong. His views are not out of line or offensive or, quote, dangerous, end quote. As some are saying, when did we become such a fragile people that someone's opinions make us unsafe? It's ridiculous. Please reinstate Chief Shelton immediately. Thank you for your time. Margie Beck. That's Ivy. Sherry Crippen. She has some written testimony that, and all of this is available in the back. That is quite a number of pages, which would exceed the 3 minutes, Mayor. Okay. Do you want me to read this? She did testify verbally here tonight, or just have this submitted into the record?
Yeah, submit in the record, and maybe
Will do.
make, send the copies to all of the council members and the press if they want it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Council
Thank you.
does have this in hand right now.
Oh, okay,
And you'll get a copy.
okay. So council already has it, okay. And then I guess if the press wants to see it, they can.
Absolutely.
John and
Okay.
Brad. Okay.
Simon Ford. I cannot attend the Palmer City Council meeting tonight, but I wanted to offer my comments in support of Chief Shelton. I served as a Palmer police officer for 3 years under Dwayne Shelton's leadership. When I was hired, Chief Shelton was a sergeant and my direct supervisor. Shortly after Chief Romali's retirement in 2015, he became the commander of PPD. I worked closely with Chief Shelton and observed his leadership often during intense, complex, and stressful situations. During the time I worked for PPD, I can't think of a single instance in which I observed a hint of conduct that made me question Chief Shelton's judgment, integrity, or his suitability to occupy a position that requires the public's trust. The officers and dispatchers serve in the department come from a variety of ethnic backgrounds, political affiliations, genders, etc., and Chief Shelton has always modeled an exemplary standard of ethics and inspired a spirit of trust and cooperation in the department. He always treated members of the public with dignity and respect and required his officers to do the same, and in doing so, he earned my respect and admiration. Chief Shelton is being scrutinized for comments he made on personal social media profile. He, like all of the rest of us, has opinions about politics, social issues, etc., but I believe he understands that the nature of the position he occupies requires him to make official decisions in an objective and neutral manner. I found Chief Shelton to be fair, reasonable, and balanced leader, well able to view situations without letting his personal convictions cloud his obligation to respect the rights of others to exercise their freedom in ways that were contrary to those convictions. Please consider the 2 decades of selfless service Chief Shelton has given this community before destroying his career over comments he made years ago while speaking in his official capacity. The speech expressed in opinions he shared on a personal platform should not serve as the basis for the council's evaluation of his job performance. Respectfully, Simon Ford. Dave and Andrea Bowler. Ms. Alley, could you please have the following read into the record during tonight's meeting? Thank you, David Bowler. Madam Mayor and Council, apologies in advance for not presenting in person, but I was not able to attend due to work. My comments this evening focus mainly on the events of the last week. We as individuals are allowed to formulate and voice our own perceptions and sentiments on subjects, but as a leader in the community and a representative of our community, an individual needs to remain neutral on controversial subjects to properly represent and serve the public's trust. The personal opinions of our police chief showcased on social media have the unintended consequence of influencing the perception of department policies as well as the officers serving under him in the conduct of doing their jobs. You as civic leaders know this to be true. Recently, our police chief has been suspended pending a review by the city manager for personal statements and opinions made on his social media platform about various subjects from Black Lives Matter to sexual assault. To date, the only public response from this body has been from the mayor stating, quote, city employees like Shelton fall under a code of ethics, but the city also needs to balance the right to free speech, end quote. While this issue should have been addressed during the hiring process, I find it ironic, Madam Mayor, that you now are acknowledging ethics in relation to the conduct of city employee. Why the double standard when it comes to elected officials? Why do you refuse to acknowledge the existence of ethics when a councilman decides to make, quote, unorthodox requests, end quote, of city assets and randomly skip meetings? Is it because it is not in writing that makes it okay? As it stands, this mayor and council have been ineffective in addressing dilemmas of ethical judgment, and as a result, perception would indicate that with each incident, the bar is lowered and more incidents manifest. When is this body going to address these issues? Are we going to kick the can down the road until the public loses interest? You as a body can admonish, censor, or hold to confidence in an individual's behavior or performance. You just need to have the fortitude and courage to stand up and do what you were elected to and represent the city of Palmer. Thanks. David K. Fuller. Janelle Gagnon. I don't know if I said that right. Is that right? Okay. Dear Mayor DeVries, Deputy Mayor Combs, and Palmer City Council members, I am writing to lend my voice to the chorus of voices calling for the permanent removal of Police Chief Dwayne Shelton. Education for Shelton, with the means of reforming his stated derogatory opinions on social media about the Black Lives Matter movement being a, quote, hate group, plain and simple, end quote. His disbelief in more than 2 genders, the existence of white privilege, and the wage gap between men and women may be possible. At least I would hope for someone who took an oath to serve and protect all equally, but he is not fit to lead a force. His credibility and ability to lead with dignity as a chief of police is shot, plain and simple. Our young people are observing and learning from the standard adult role models, are setting for who is fit to lead, to serve, and to protect, and what equity and justice means both on paper and played out in reality among our community and its leaders. Thank you for considering the comments of the public as you make your decisions that affect the safety of Palmer residents. Sincerely, Janelle Gagnon. Andrea Hackbarth. Dear Mayor DeVries and City Council members, I am writing to give public testimony about the recent suspension of the Palmer Police Chief due to his, I don't know this word, vitriolic? Vitriolic comments on social media. I appreciate the swift action that was taken, and I hope you will follow this up with a rigorous investigation into his conduct and eventually releasing him from his duties on the Palmer Police Force. A man who feels such distaste and vitriol, that's just not the one. Sorry for that mispronunciation earlier. A man who feels such distaste and vitriol for entire groups of people in his community and freely expresses this on social media has no business being in a position whose main purpose is to protect and serve all community members. How are we, who may fit into one of the groups he seems to feel so strongly against, supposed to trust him or his leadership of the rest of the police force? Moreover, the police are often held up as positive role models for children. Are Dwayne comments something we should our children as good examples of public discourse? I would answer in responding, no. As a mother, I cannot in good conscience tell my son to look up to our police chief and by extension, any of our city police officers. If we want a kind, peaceful city for our children to grow up in, our police force needs to set that example. Thank you, Andrea Hackbarth.
No, it just said that Councilwoman Burbrick had left, but I see your face, so how's that work?
So she's left the audio. The council is connected, some, as you see on the screen, are connected by Zoom, which does have audio for them. They can speak through, and some are connected through our teleconference line that has better connection and audio. So even though they leave for Councilmember Valerius, Councilmember Combs, Councilmember Burbrick, and Councilmember Carrington who are connected, they are still connected and active in the meeting.
So even though it says she left the meeting, okay.
Yes, that's a great question. Those that are not connected through Zoom, when they leave the audio and you hear that, then they have disconnected. It would be an example of as if they walked out of the room if they were here present in the chambers.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Trisha Harvey. I first met Chief Shelton roughly 8 years ago and have since interacted with him several times on a professional level. Never once have I witnessed him act or speak unprofessionally or in a biased manner, let alone a racist, transphobic one. His personal beliefs expressed on his personal page are protected by the First Amendment. Even Palmer Mayor DeVries stated that in a public interview. See attached, close paren. It is incredulous that an acting city manager can dig through someone's personal social media profile and, quote, find, unquote, something posted years ago, then send those posts to an individual that they knew would blow it up all over the place. This entire process has been nothing but a witch hunt against the best leader the city of Palmer and the Palmer Police Department have ever had. Not to mention the individual who insisted that Dwayne be fired is after nothing more than a huge payday. See attached. After Chief Shelton is immediately restored to his position, Brett Hampson should be removed for violation of privacy laws, and a public apology should be issued by the city of Palmer to Dwayne Shelton. Thank you for your time, Trisha Harvey. The attached are screenshots from Facebook. And first one reads, when reached by phone Tuesday, Palmer Mayor Edna DeVries said she had first heard about the social media post Monday evening. When asked whether she found the post concerning, DeVries said, because he's not speaking on behalf of the department, then people are, city employees, or as well as anybody else, have a right to be able to express themselves, and so we don't judge or keep track of everything our employees are doing in their off hours, end quote. When Shelton's claim that the Black Lives Matter movement is a, quote, hate group, quote, end quote, was mentioned, DeVries responded, quote, you don't think they are, end quote. I want to note here that this testimony does have redaction because there is foul language that is issued in this. So what is out and what council has does include reduction of what violates our Facebook and social media in receipt of that. So in here, the first one had something, so it is fully redacted. Comment to that would be, I report that redacted. Comment. Gonna make me a rich redaction. I'm glad I could share this, come up with all of you. Imagine the gear videos now. Comment, I'd be forwarding that to the troopers and a lawyer.
And who was that from?
The first full redaction does not have the name. The second comment, Leo Storm Ash, I would report that. And then the word is redacted. Nicole Roche, ROJS. Gonna make me a rich redaction. I'm glad I could share this, come up with all of you. Imagine the gear videos now. Sabrina Spears. I'd be forwarding that to the troopers and a lawyer. Thank you for asking that clarification. Brooke Heppenstall. Ms. Nally. She used my email. That's why, Nalley. I would like to have my comments read into the record for public commentary at tonight's city council meeting. They are in reference to the current situation with Police Chief Shelton. Thank you, Brooke Heppenstall, Cronung. Dear Mayor DeVries, Deputy Mayor Combs, and Palmer City Council members, Palmer has long had a reputation for questionable policing prior to Chief Ron Oates' tenure from 1989 through 1994, and currently, I do not remember when Palmer did not have that reputation. Your current police chief, Mr. Shelton, does nothing to correct that point of view, either locally, or in our neighboring cities and towns. His comments on social media reflect his point of view as that of a rookie policeman with a chip on his shoulder towards an increasingly diverse society, locally and nationally. From laughing about making gun stocks to rattle the liberals, holding biased views on rape and an ignorance of the basic research data on that issue, and a lack of self-discipline and restraint in public discussion of social issues online, we see a person who bases his decisions on a set of beliefs rather than fact and data. This makes him ill-suited for the honest and important job of leading public safety officers in any town in America. Chief Shelton's political bias is loud and clear. A proper vetting of applicants for this kind of position is imperative. This man does not have the proper temperament or education or social sensitivity for the job of leading Palmer's public safety officers. Now he has no credibility with a significant part of the population, something sorely needed if Palmer is to grow up and out of the reputation its police department has long had. I hope you will reconsider his position and move to find new leadership along the lines of Chiefs Ron Oates, that's O-T-T-E, and Walt Monaghan, leaders who set the bar for public safety in Alaska. Thank you for considering public commentary on this issue. Brooke G. Heppenstall, Cronung, Palmer, Alaska. I am sorry if I don't say the names right. Ruth Holbert. Dear Palmer City Council, I wrote to you last week expressing my concerns over police issues nationally and specific comments by Palmer's Chief of Police. Like most Americans, I've done a lot of reading and listening and learning in the past few days, and now I think my previous letter was entirely too mild and inadequate to the challenge before us as a community. But I tend to speak mildly even when outraged, so I'll give it another attempt. Like all American cities, we need to rethink our approach to policing from the bottom up. Policies from Campaign Zero look to me like a good data-driven I'm going to restate that. Policies from Campaign Zero look to me like a good data-driven place to start. Defunding the police is entirely a less radical proposition than I thought a week ago when you get down to the actual policy proposals. We've seen that when police hold prejudice and contempt for marginalized communities, the result is violence, death, and justice denied. In regards to Chief Shelton, I'd like to believe that his previously expressed views reflect ignorance and misinformation and that he can learn and grow, but publicly voiced dismissiveness, sorry, this is really tiny print, but publicly voiced dismissiveness towards the concerns of people of color, transgender people, and sexual assault victims demonstrate bias too dangerous for us to let him learn on the job. Palmer should hire a chief who can be trusted to look out for the most vulnerable of our neighbors. Last week gave us a vivid lesson in the dangers of people believing the false story about BLM is a hate group when the announcement of a peaceful protest set off an online panic, and people afraid of rioters and looters swore to come downtown to intimidate and possibly shoot protesters. I had to consider whether someone might actually shoot me in my own hometown because they saw me not for who I am, but for who they think I am, because they thought I was a threat. That's the first time I've ever had that concern. Some of our neighbors live with that worry every day. That's why it's on us to make deep and lasting change now. Thank you for listening. Ruth Holbert, 4th generation Palmerite. Mary Kate Johnston. As a 38-year resident of the Valley and Palmer community, I have always taken pride in this city. As a school administrator for 29 years in the Valley, I had the opportunity to work with the Palmer Police Department many times over the years. I was shocked to discover some of the alleged statements made on social media by the Chief of Police. If true, they are certainly contrary to the ideals of inclusion and respect that our community deserves. Our community needs to hear from the mayor and council about a remedy to the lack of trust that is now evident between the department and a large number of community members. When I chose a career in the public eye, entrusted with the community's children, I knew my words, behavior, and character would be held to a higher standard than an average citizen, and it should be. The same is true of administration and law enforcement. Proper vetting is so critical in the hiring process. I appreciate that you are now facing some very difficult decisions. It was a very good working relationship our school had with the Palmer Police Department. I hope to continue taking pride in our city as a citizen with family here. Best of luck as you address these serious concerns. Sincerely, Mary Kate Johnston. Marnie Conchalo. Dear Mayor DeVries, members of the City Council, thank you for your swift and fair actions in regard to Don Shelton. Please be aware, that's what it says, Don Shelton. Please be aware that Mr. Shelton made some very offensive remarks on his social media. In these times of unrest and social awareness, I have trouble believing most citizens in Palmer would trust Mr. Shelton. His position will be greatly compromised if not totally ignored. I want my children and grandchildren to feel they can always trust a policeman. I'm not sure this could be said if Mr. Shelton is left in his current position. Thank you for all your work. Marnie Conchalo. This is Megan Knutson. Dear Palmer Mayor and City Councilmen and women. My name is Megan Knutson, Knutson, and I am a resident of Palmer, Alaska. I am writing today about the events surrounding Palmer, aka Police Chief Dwayne Shelton. I am demanding a review of Dwayne Shelton's actions, public presence, and integrity in order to determine if he is the appropriate official to protect and serve all populations of the city of Palmer. Freedom of speech is a constitutional right of every citizen in the United States of America. For every opinion, there is an opposite, and we are lucky in the fact that our constitutional rights allow for both of those opinions to be verbalized. Those in leadership positions maintain their constitutional right to freedom of speech. However, placing someone in a leadership position who does not share the views that align with the responsibilities of that position is dangerous to the populations he or she serves. It is Dwayne Shelton's responsibility to uphold the law and protect its citizens. Dwayne Shelton has made his views on sexual assault public on social media. As a woman and as someone who has seen and worked with individuals of assault here in the Mat-Su Valley, Mr. Shelton's beliefs on victim shaming is disgraceful and dangerous. According to the 2018 FBI Uniform Crime Reporting Program, Alaska saw an 11% rise in reported sexual assault cases in 2018, while nationally the sexual assault cases rose by 2.7%. Alaska's violent crime rate rose by 3%, while the nation rate decreased. Violence and sexual assault is a serious problem in Alaska, and it needs to be taken seriously, especially by those in a position to protect its residents. According to the Palmer Police website, quote, the focus of the department is the forgoing of a partnership with the community based on mutual trust, confidence, commitment, and open communications to maintain and improve the quality of life and promote the safety and welfare of our citizens, end quote. I encourage the City Council to question if Dwayne Shelton is able to maintain that partnership of mutual trust and improve on the quality of life while promoting the welfare of the citizens of Palmer. Based on his past social media postings alone, he is not someone I would trust to fight for me or other assault victims. Police have the power to change over time. People have the power to change over time. Has he? I encourage you, a member of City Council, to use the values of the Palmer Police Department, parenthesis, respect, compassion, integrity, efficiency, and leadership, and close paren, to guide your personal decision-making process. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. Sincerely, Megan Knutson. Julie McKee. Hi, Norma. I would like this to be entered into the record at tonight's council meeting as I won't be able to attend. Thank you, Julie. In light of recent events involving our Chief of Police, Dwayne Shelton, I feel compelled to write this letter. I've been employed with the City of Palmer as an administrative assistant to the Chief of Police for over 6 years and have enormous pride in my department and in my coworkers. The law enforcement officers I work with do a thankless job that endangers their very lives on a daily basis while facing intense public scrutiny, and all this at substandard wages. They do their jobs because they have a true calling to public service and a great respect for their command staff. Some of Chief Shelton's opinions made on his page and meant only for the people he considers friends and family were taken out of context by someone who is seeking to ruin his career simply because of his position. either for their own political agenda or to seek revenge for someone unknown reason. Those opinions were: 1, his right to have and to express; 2, not discriminatory in nature; 3, have no bearing on how he does his job, as evidenced by an impressive 20-plus year career and track record of, all caps, always treating, all caps, all people fairly and with respect. If this is not the case, show me an example. In fact, I am certain that Chief Shelton would not hold the position he was recently promoted to if there had been anything even remotely negative in his work history. You, all caps, know this man. He is a person of high morals and character, with love for his fellow man and a kind, generous spirit. Many people in our community have expressed these same feelings and see absolutely no wrongdoing and are frankly confused by the city's actions. Rather than standing behind your valued employee, you announced to the world that Chief Shelton was guilty of something that someone with very suspect intentions accused him of, admittedly without even having done an investigation. It appears that you have listened to the voice of the minority because of the politically charged subject material, but your hasty response was unnecessary and went too far. You have successfully tarnished the reputation of a fine man, and that of our department in one full swoop. You have lost our respect and broken our trust, and this damage may be irreparable. My request and hope is that you reinstate Chief Shelton and tell the public all of the fine reasons why he became our chief of police in the first place. I am proud to say he is my boss and my friend. Thank you, Julie McKee. Justice McPherson. Regarding the ethics issue, specifically regarding the issue of ethics violation by the chief of police. I am a Palmer resident, born and raised. I am also a member of one of the groups denigrated. Oh, I'm getting so tired. Sorry. Denigrated by the chief of police in his comments. While it is his job to be unbiased, that state cannot be achieved by magically flipping a switch. Those preconceptions color views no matter what. The position of chief of police has a great amount of power to skew how law enforcement treats people. As a result, I no longer feel safe calling the police if ever I needed them. That leaves only a few alternatives for many issues, none of which are good for public or personal safety. I have lost my trust in the police as a result of learning these things. Public servants in positions that hold dramatic amounts of power over citizens must be as unbiased and fair as possible, and by showing strong personal biases outside of work, that faith is destroyed. Laura Melcher. Palmer Mayor and City Council. As you saw yesterday, Alaskans are growing more vocal about the racism in this valley and how it affects our Black sisters and brothers who live here. Recently, you made the right move by putting Officer Shelton, the Palmer Police Chief, on administrative leave. Like many fellow Alaskans in the valley, I am asking you to fire him. Here's why. Police are supposed to keep people safe. That is their job description. But how can a person like Dwayne Shelton protect Black people when his family supports a racist hate symbol, the Confederate flag, and he himself believes that organizations that speak for the rights of Black people are a hate group? He has the right to his own beliefs, but not when they influence and alter his ability to perform the job he was sworn to do, protect and serve every single person in this valley. We are watching, so is the world. Respectfully, Laura Ojeda Melcher. We're almost there. Ben Paca. Hi, Norma. I will not be able to attend the council meeting tonight, but I would like the following statement read into the record. To our elected city officials regarding the disciplinary action against Police Chief Shelton, I was disturbed to hear the news that Police Chief Shelton was placed on administrative leave for having voiced his opinions on social media. This type of, quote, cancel culture, end quote, has become commonplace in many areas of the country, but it was surprising to see it in my own backyard. The practice of seeking to damage the livelihood of social standing of individuals with whom you disagree is not a practice that should be entertained and thereby incentivized. If this is the precedent to be set by the city, then more complaints and disciplinary action should be expected in every corner of city government. There is no shortage of people eager to be offended. The opinions presented by Police Chief Shelton were made on his private social media and were in no way portrayed to represent the official stance of the City of Palmer or any other government body. The courts have ruled on situations such as this numerous times and maintained that public employees retain their First Amendment rights when acting as private citizens. The decision to discipline Police Chief Shelton does not appear to have any basis in established law or local government policy. It is simply political. I fully support the right of every individual to voice his or her beliefs as a private citizen, regardless of the content being expressed. This concept is fundamental to our system of governance. Myself, my family, and our votes stand with Police Chief Shelton and the First Amendment rights of all individuals. Regards, Ben Paca. Dear Mayor DeVries and Palmer City Council, June 8th, 2020. With the suspension of Chief Shelton due to Facebook posts critical of Black Lives Matter, BLM, I want to take the opportunity to introduce myself and offer my perspective. My name is Doug Paca, and I worked for the Seward Police Department as a police officer for 5 years, 1981 to 1986, and the Alaska State Troopers as a court service officer for 30 years, 1987 to 2016. I am a past defensive tactics, ASP baton, BATON. I didn't say that word right. What's the word? Is it baton? It's not baton.
Baton? Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay. Thank you very much. I will restart that one. I am a past defensive tactics, ASP baton, and OC pepper spray instructor for the Alaska State Troopers. During those 35 years as an officer, I attempted to the best of my ability to treat others as I would want my family or myself to be treated. Like Mayor DeVries, I too am a praying person. I believe if practiced, the timeless principles of equality, unity, and mutual respect will lead us through the dark times we find ourselves in today. I would like to state as clearly and forcefully as possible that the death of George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis police officers was criminal and the justice system is at work. The parties responsible will be held accountable. The officers were fired from the police force, arrested, and given a very high bail. They now await a jury trial for their actions. Our founding fathers took the belief that all are created by God and therefore equal from the Bible. They enshrined the principle within the Constitution of the United States. It was the very principle that led to the Civil War and the destruction of slavery. Through the principles of the Constitution, the founding fathers also sought to protect those who held dissenting views from those in political power. I believe it would be dangerous for our country to destroy someone's livelihood and drive the person from the public square because of a differing view on a subject. This appears even more questionable when that person has already been deemed to have a good service record. Mutual respect is a glue which holds our society together. In police work, it is a good practice to always give respect, but to also demand respect in return. Something is missing from that mutual respect when one hears chants on the TV news of, quote, pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon, end quote, or, quote, what do we want, dead cops, when do we want them now, end quote, from members of BLM. By far the most disturbing to me was seeing members of BLM confronting white individuals and telling them if they wish to be considered an ally, they need to kneel before the BLM member, confess their, quote, white privilege, end quote, and apologize for essentially being white. There is no mutual respect in this situation, and it is overly racist. The dynamics here are similar to an abusive domestic violence relationship, dominance, intimidation, and control. This is the opposite of Dr. Martin Luther King's vision of a colorblind society where people are judged on the content of their character, not the color of their skin. It is a universal truth that bullies will never be satisfied with appeasement. Peaceful protests are a core part of our freedoms. I respect and support them. Assaults, riots, and looting are crimes because they infringe on the rights and safety of others. Those who participate in them do not seek justice. They are criminals. The George Floyd protest, along with the lives lost and massive amounts of property damage in Minneapolis and throughout the country due to criminal actions, have drawn my attention to criminal statistics for 2018 and 2019. I wanted to see what conclusions could be made regarding, quote, systematic racial injustice, end quote, and more specifically, how police use of force relates to minorities. These statistics are as follows and speak for themselves. 2018 violent incidents involving blacks and whites, Bureau of Justice Statistics, as taken from media source. Total violent incidents, 4,145,300. Interracial violent incidents, 607,725, 14.6% of total violent incidents. White on black violent incidents, 59,777, 9.8% of interracial violent incidences. Black on white violent incidences, 547,984, 90.16% of interracial violent incidences. FBI crime statistics 2019 as taken from media source. 10 million arrests were made by police nationwide. 1,004 resulted in fatal police shootings. 41 were unarmed individuals. 19 were unarmed white individuals. 46.3% of unarmed fatal shootings. 9 were unarmed black individuals. 21.9% of unarmed fatal shootings. 89 police officers murdered in 2019. A police officer is 18.5 times more likely to be shot by a black male than an unarmed black is to be shot by the police. Chicago statistics for weekend of May 30 through May 31st, 2020, as taken from media source. 82 people were shot in this time period. 19 of them died. In summary, I would like to wholeheartedly agree with the tweet related to White's being asked to kneel and apologize. Brown girl in the clown world. This is a weird and uncomfortable, and I'm 99% certain most other POC feel the same as me. Y'all are getting weird, like Jonestown weird. Prayerfully, Doug Pecka. Diana Sloan Bassner. I have always spoken with such pride when I tell people I'm from Palmer or I describe Palmer to people from other areas in and out of state. This is until I read the comments posted from our police chief. I find them totally against the views of inclusion and acceptance that make Palmer such a lovely place to reside. I have no confidence in a person in a leadership position with this kind of attitude, especially a person in a position of authority such as a police chief. In fact, knowing this information makes Palmer feel like a scarier place. I'm sorry that you are all in this situation, and I'm hoping that you'll use this experience as a reminder of the importance of vetting those in power in the future. Thank you for your willingness to serve the Palmer community. I greatly appreciate your continued efforts in making Palmer such an amazing community. Sincerely, Diana Sloan Bassner. Last one. Kim Wychuff. Thank you for your comments. This was sent to me, and so this person was informed. Thank you for your comments. The clerk will read them into our council meeting record. Dear Mayor DeVries, I am writing from a friend's computer as due to construction at my house, I have no internet. Please read the statement into the record at the meeting on June 9th, meeting of the City Council. 1. Black lives, white lives, American lives, all matter, lives matter. Justice and fairness is for all, not just black people or white people or immigrants. It's just and fair that we all can pursue lives that fulfill us in America, in Palmer, Alaska. It's fair that if a person can say that black lives matter, a person can also say that white lives matter, all lives matter too. In America, we are free to speak our minds no matter the opinion. We're even free to shout about hate and burn the American flag. Parentheses, for shame, there is no better country on earth. That is why each of us is here. Close paren. 3, it is an American virtue to work for what we expect, to work for what we want, and not to expect to get anything for free because of the color of our skin, because we come from disadvantaged circumstances, because we have too many kids, or for any other reason. If any of what the chief of police stated in his personal Facebook page can be proven to be untrue, then he can be called out. If what he said is true, even if it is politically unpopular, then those who would attempt to fire him as a way of to censor him should be ashamed. Stop the cowardly attacks because he said something on a forum not related to his professional position that isn't popular. Reinstate him as chief of police. Thank you for reading this statement. Meg Chris, Valley resident for over 30 years. That is the last one, Madam Mayor.
Okay, all righty. So then that,
I think Norman deserves a round of applause.
okay,
I'm gonna go grab it so you have it here.
okay, okay. So that concludes, is there anyone else in the, okay, Mike? Did we miss?
Mayor, I did miss one.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Yeah.
Sorry, Mayor.
That's okay, no problem. Thanks, Mike, for pointing that out.
Yes.
One of the people in the audience noted that there was one that Norma missed, so he was pointing that out to Norma, so now Norma's going to read that one into the record. So that's what's going on here.
Again, I apologize for that.
No, no problem.
Carol Ryan Obi.
Thank you.
Palmer City Council and Madam Mayor. When I taught at Palmer High, I did not share my political affiliation with my students. This would sometimes frustrate some of my students because they wanted to know my beliefs in certain matters. As a social studies teacher, I covered all sides and we looked at the facts. I was there to support them in their learning. I was there for all my students regardless of sex, race, creed, sexuality, sexual orientation. I am appalled by the chief of police social media sharing. I'm appalled by the chief of police social media sharing. It's very hard to trust the police department when the leader of it is obviously not supportive all the members of this community. It is also hard to trust the mayor when she invites an armed militia to our town to police our citizens when we have a long history of peaceful protest. Change needs to come to Palmer right now. Thank you. Carol Ryan Obi.
Okay, so that's it then. Okay. All right, so is there anyone else that would like to address the council on any subject tonight? Okay, seeing no one, I will close audience participation. And I think we'll probably will take a break, but let me just say, one thing for the record is, the subject that most of you addressed tonight is not on the council agenda, so the council will not be addressing that subject. I would anticipate that at some time within the future, the city manager will make the final decision. That decision then will be relayed to the city council, and then it will be up to the city council if they want to address that situation, depending on which decision the city manager makes, okay? So we thank you all for coming, and so we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break now. According to my time here, it's 9:15, so we'll come back at 9:25. Thank you.
Three, I think, yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and call council meeting back to order. Okay. Got it, Pam? Thank you. Okay, is everybody back online, Norma?
Councilmember Jill Valerius, are you? I see she's on Zoom.
Okay.
Perfect. Councilmember Combs is present. Councilmember Carrington, I see is here. Councilmember Richard Best? Thank you, sir. Councilmember Julie Burbrick is here. Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
She's in waiting, it says.
She's now joined by audio and video. Thank you, Mayor. And you're here. Mike? Mr. Gaddy, are you on the line?
Okay.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so now we are ready for reports, and the first one, City Manager, sir. You ready to go? All right.
So in your packet, I have included a few things here. The first is, the Palmer Public Library is open for curbside pickup, so we just wanted to give you some stats to show you that it's working. 258 cars, 803 holds in the 2 weeks that we've done this. I will tell you that on June 16th, they'll be opening their interior to the public, so that will be next Tuesday. So they're still gonna go Tuesday through Saturday for a bit.
Okay.
And they're also gonna have some reduced hours, so they're able to social distance as well as clean up.
Okay.
Okay. Next is the building report for the month. Still rather slow start to the year. We do have a couple of things pending that should increase this thing, increase the building report a little bit, and so it will hopefully look to improve. Any questions on the building report? None. I'll move on to the golf. The golf has been very good. Everybody's looking for a reason to get outside and play. Last year, as you know, was a record-breaking year. We were just shy of $1 million worth of income for the course. And to tell you, year to date, we are ahead of that figure from last year. What George tells me is that our course is in unbelievable shape.
Great.
Other courses are struggling a little bit with how they are, and so we should have a pretty good summer. This last weekend, they had one of the largest golf tournaments they've ever had. They had 164 golfers, and typically
Wow.
it's 100.
Good.
And so there's great interest in getting outside, and it's an activity that you can social distance. And, you know, I know you guys all know it, but George is a tremendous asset for the city of Palmer.
He is.
And, you know, we're very lucky to have him. You know, I would like to comment on a couple other things before I move to the city finances that I sent out. First of all, last Monday, we were indirectly notified by the state that our intergovernmental agreement with the DPS for dispatch was kind of falling apart. The governor was getting heat from regional areas to form a task force to evaluate where it was headed. And so what was concluded by the governor is that he was going to slow the process down, form this task force for evaluation of potential alternatives. This task force is tasked with providing a report by the end of September, or the idea is that they will go back to this other one. So if you have comments to the governor's office regarding dispatch and the need to provide a safe dispatch for the state and at a reasonable cost, I think it would be behoove all of us to make our comments known, because kind of one of the reasons why we're in this position is a lot of other people made their comments known, and you know, it kind of circumvented the system or stopped it to this point. Next thing I'd like to talk to quickly about is last week we had Last Wednesday, we had a meeting with Department of Justice on our wastewater treatment plant. At that meeting was Department of Justice, the EPA, the DEC, their contract engineers, and Mr. Gaddy and our wastewater staff. I think the meeting went very well. They're considering our request to defer the construction of the clarifiers for a couple of years to get some data that will evaluate whether or not and to what degree the clarifiers need to be put in there. And so we do have a follow-up meeting next week. And I think they were very receptive to the comments that Mr. Nall and our engineers made. And so that's a encouraging development. Another thing I'd like to update you on is I had a meeting with the DEC today on our support for the Arts Council to remediate the power plant properties. DEC is looking very favorably at this project, and I suspect that it will take place this summer and into next year. Not only remediation, but also the monitoring of some groundwater. And so it's pretty encouraging. The last thing I wish to I would like to give a round of thanks to a number of people, and especially some partnership agencies with the state. You know, this last week was a tough week for the city in many respects for a lot of different reasons. But we had a march that an application indicated that there'd be 100 people that turned into anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 to who knows, maybe more. And I just want to say that Sergeant Hammonds did a fantastic job organizing his troops. He did a great job in coordinating with other state agencies around, or other agencies, including many different state agencies. We had a couple of briefings from some federal agents as well. But I just want to tell you, he also, want to publicly thank the role that the Department of Public Safety played in this, because they were very active. They had their commissioner, deputy commissioner, and a number of officers in Palmer available out of sight, so it wasn't instigating or inciting anybody. But it went off very well. 0 arrests, 0 cases of vandalism, so it was a success. Lastly, I would like to highlight the city finances. We told you that we would keep you up to date as to everything that was happening with respect to our collection of sales tax and property tax revenues, so that you were aware of our status as far as where we sit financially. So, since the last time we talked, the state fair was still in question, and so we've updated the figures and the information to reflect the state fair closing. Okay. But I will tell you that I think probably where I'd like to start is on the sales tax by month, the spreadsheet that's the Excel spreadsheet that you see, the history from 2009 to 20. But you can see that at the beginning of the year, we were ahead of our revenue projections from sales tax percentage. And then, again, these numbers, the January numbers, are December of the year before numbers. The February numbers are December actuals, so they lag a month, because individuals have our sales tax submittals are lagged a month. But so you can see here that so our May numbers are really April's numbers, which was for the most part a closed month. And so you can see that overall sales for the month, sales tax revenue, was down by 14%. So we had originally projected 30% in that cash flow numbers that we had done, and so we redid those numbers. So
Remodeled it.
the cash flow projections for the rest of the year look significantly better from 30 to 14. And so then one thing that what we did on the cash flow was to kind of normalize, we normalized
Projections.
the revenue projections for August and September with the loss of the state fair. So basically, we took out about 250,000 or so and then reduced that number by about 12%. And so those are, Gina and I feel pretty good that those numbers are reflective on what's happening right now in the Palmer economy. Anecdotally, I think that what I've heard from people is that June seems to be a little slower than May was. So we'll have to see how that all transpires. But it's a little bit better news, I think, than 30%.
Right.
And so I just wanted to highlight the financials for you. And with that, I have no further.
Okay. Yes. Uh-huh.
Where it's for January 2021 and beyond, and why the number bottoms out is because we have just no projection and should be about the audit.
Yeah, so, Richard, I think you're referring to like January 20, is that February 21? Yeah, that's what that reflects, is that those numbers just weren't in there, okay?
And we're just putting out the general information out there.
I'm having a hard time understanding that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Madam,
I'm good with getting that clarification. I'm fine. Thanks.
Councilmember Best, we're having a hard time hearing you. You're coming very muddled, as if maybe the microphone's close to your mouth possibly. So we need clarification on what you said, actually. I'm sorry, sir.
Right. But the answer was okay for the first part. The second part is okay to not have answered. We'll fine.
What was your second part?
he said it's okay not to have an answer, I think is what he said. It's like-
Right.
Yeah, so. Okay. So is any of the other council or Councilman Best, do you have further questions about anything the city manager noted or reported? Yes, Councilwoman Sabrina Combs?
Thank you. Is City Hall back open?
City Hall is not open to the public yet. I suspect it will be very soon. As soon as we figure out our social distancing and our one-way traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, further questions or comments from any of the rest of the council? Okay, so we'll move on then to the city clerk's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are a couple of items, 3 items I'd like to report on tonight. And the first is just letting the council know that as much as we try our best with our media, there are times that people still are getting Zoom bombed. So Kenai Peninsula Borough did get Zoom bombed this last week, and what had happened is inappropriate, some pornographic images were then put on there. So I appreciate the council supporting the efforts that we had tonight, and as we do with all of our council meetings, as we're trying to do our best, is that the Zoom is reserved for council, because that's how we're able to lock it down. And we've been successful in not getting Zoom bombed. So thank you very much, City Council, for helping support that and keeping us from having awful things. AML Summer Conference will be coming very quickly. The AML did decide to have the conference. They will offer an opportunity to attend in person or attend through video conferencing. The fee is the same regardless, it looked like, when I looked at the registration forms. So what I'll need by end of month, June 30th, is just let me know if you plan on attending in person, by video, or not attend at all. Thank you to those who have responded already. And then my office will coordinate with you on arrangements. Is anybody at this time ready to tell me, are you going or not? Or do you want to just let me know later?
Does anybody plan on going, or just as long as you're, okay? All right. There's so, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilman Carrington.
So at my work, we have an interesting inspection happening, so I'd say that I can go. So just plan not, I won't go.
It's,
Mayor,
uh-huh,
I already done this by email with Norma, but I would like the record. I'll be in the Kenai area that week with the governor's commission on aging for a quarterly meeting. So I do not plan on attending the AML.
okay.
I will need an excused absence for that week's city council meeting, and I would request that as well.
Okay. Is there,
I think it's the 9th maybe, but I have the calendar in front of me. But the reason why I would not be after one of those things, because when we do our quarterly meetings, it's pretty much from breakfast till. So thank you.
is there any objections to excusing Deputy Mayor Combs from the August 11th meeting? Is there any objections? No, okay. Already, so.
Hearing none, it'll be noted in the record at
Right.
that meeting ahead of time. Thank
So
you, Madam
anyone
Mayor.
else want to state whether they are or not, or are they still? Councilwoman Sabrina Combs, go ahead.
I will be attending.
You will be attending, okay, okay. Okay, so we have one definite then, okay. Anyone else, you'll just get in touch with Norma, I guess. I'm sort of up in the air, so much has been happening in the last couple of weeks that it's almost like, I don't know what's gonna be happening at that time, and so I think, I'll probably do the streaming as of right now. Councilwoman Sabrina, were you gonna say something? No, okay. I thought your hand was up, so, okay. So I think that's probably where I will be, and if I change my mind, I'll be sure and let the council know, but I think that will be probably why. I guess there's just too many fires going on right now that I don't feel comfortable saying I'm gonna be out of town for a period of time, so anyway. Anybody else have any other thoughts? Anything else on the clerk's report, or did you have further? Okay,
If anyone has anything on the annual summer conference, I'm good.
okay. All
I do
right.
have one more item.
Okay, so go ahead, Madam Clerk.
The last item I did want to report to the council is it came up last meeting about the absentee by mail application requests. I didn't have a definite number, but I do tonight. So I just
Okay.
want to give you an update with some numbers. Palmer registered voters, applications received have been 102.
Okay,
We have had 8 applications by request that did not qualify, meaning they were not a Palmer resident.
okay.
There are some that they claim they are, but it doesn't match the voter rolls, so those are things we're following up on with people to
Okay.
make people to either have them update their registration or they will not receive the ballot.
Okay.
Give that assurance.
Okay.
With all of that, that is obviously the highest number of absentee by mail applications that we've received. And so follow-up of last week's meeting, Mayor, as you had mentioned about getting some part-time temporary staff to help process absentee by mail, because my office does these multiple times through the year, actually, and most definitely a good rigorous vetting before we mail them. I did ask and worked with HR and finance director to get some numbers pulled together, and I'm asking for council support to move forward with that. That it could be at highest cost $7,500, and it has been confirmed that it would qualify, being that this is an increase with anticipation of it being a COVID-19.
Right, so, okay. So we know it's gonna be covered by COVID and it's, been authorized. Does anybody have any objection for the city clerk to move forward with HR regarding that position? Yes, Deputy Mayor Combs, go ahead.
we agree that this, we're all operating under different circumstances this year, and need an actual motion, Norma, to that, so that we can say, you know, it's okay to do it, go ahead and do it. You don't have to maybe incur costs before we the money squared around. I don't have a problem with finding the funds.
Go ahead, Norma.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not feel that a formal motion is required. If the council would like to do that form of motion and support, I am obviously very open to that as well. The council can make that action, but I have received direction to continue to work with HR. It would be categorized as a position that's currently on the pay scale so that we could move forward with that as it stands. But I very much appreciate that offer of a motion and great suggestion. I will leave that up to the council if that is how they'd like to proceed.
Okay, because there will be a time later, right, when we expend the COVID funds, that will come to us, right? 'Cause
For
we've accepted
appropriation.
the money, and so all the expenditures, not only that, but how we determine to spend the other will come. But if the council feels more comfortable with a motion, I will certainly entertain a motion, and we can go forward with that, so. Is everybody okay just to leave it?
Mayor,
Yes, Deputy Mayor Combs.
just, I'm very comfortable with this going forward, and I want to thank, the clerk, for, the diligence, you know, I think there's already been extra work, and, for her and her, folks, and, they've done a terrific job, so, if she needs any more from us, I would, encourage her to come to us. Thank you.
Madam. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, sir. Yes,
This is a position for this year only.
From, when we discussed it last meeting, it was gonna be from the 1st of July till either the middle or the end of October, depending how quickly the clerk's office could wrap all of the election stuff up. So,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just because we didn't have it ready, I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
okay, all right.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, I do want to state on the record that that is what I will honor. Absolutely. That the intention and the numbers that I received are July 1st, October 31st numbers. It would not go beyond that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So any further question, or any further on your report first?
That concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions of the clerk regarding her report or anything else that you have a question on? I just want to applaud the clerk for an orderly work plan for this evening and the people that she brought in. And for those of you that are on Zoom, we took one person over from the community development. We brought in Pam, who does our secretarial work for some of our boards and commissions. And I think it went very smoothly, getting people in and out. And so thank you for doing the organization. We have some white lines on the floor. Maybe you've seen some of those, but so they probably will be removed by the time you get back, or they may stay, who knows what's going on. But anyway, I just want to thank the clerk for that. Okay, anything else regarding the clerk's report? Okay, so on mine, you have the written report. I wanted just to follow up on the task force. I have reached out to both the governor and his chief of staff because there are two positions that are going to be appointed that are either borough or city mayors. And so I have reached out to the governor to be appointed to one of those positions. I hear lots of rumors about who might or might not. And so I don't know for sure, and I'll also reach out to the boards and commissions, but
Madam Mayor,
yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, what commission are you talking about?
The 9/11 Task Force Commission for determining whether the Department of Public Safety made the right decision, or if they need to make some other decision, or I don't even know what the full agenda is. I suppose the choices will be, leave it where it is, come up with a different plan, or go ahead and go with what they have assigned with us. I will just put on the record right now, I've already voiced this to the administration in our agenda setting meeting, that yeah, I want very much for the state of Alaska to honor the agreement, the signed agreement that we have with them. And I have voiced that with the governor, I've voiced that with his chief of staff. So I'll leave that there, but that's where we are. And I just want to second the thanks for the people that came alongside of us, the other agencies. They reached out to us. We had, I don't even know how many conference calls with them telling us what they were doing, what their information was, and they really do owe a big thanks. And so I don't know if you want to prepare a letter, and we could maybe have all of the council people sign, as well as yourself, and maybe our acting chief also sign the letter. And if any of the council or all of the council would like to sign the letter also, just thanking, of course, the state and the federal agencies for helping do what they did. A lot of people, I think, probably didn't even realize that some of the people were there on Saturday, but it all made for a very well organized, and as was already stated, no arrests. So no matter what you heard on Facebook, what people thought that I didn't do, or whatever, the end result, if I can go back to an old saying that my parents had, the proof is in the pudding. So the proof's in the pudding that we all did what we were supposed to do, and we ended up with a peaceful protest. So I want to just publicly, I've already privately thanked Brad for the outstanding job he's done. John will be on board on Monday, but I think Brad has done an outstanding job. I'm not sure that maybe he would have said yes if he'd have realized all of the hot buttons, but knowing Brad, I know that he always rises to the occasion. So I just want to thank him for doing an excellent job. And no matter, again, what you hear from some of the people that testify and state, there were things that I know that he did not do, even though what social media may say that he did. So, and I think that's about all, unless somebody has some questions. Anybody have any questions or anything? Okay, all right. Mike?
Mayor?
Go ahead, sir.
Never mind, I'll slide to the attorney's report.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mike, do you have any report for us?
Not this evening, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Okay, alrighty. Councilman Best, your comment, please, sir.
Mayor, it's asked that maybe reorder for new business items. I believe that the memorandum with the if we do that to one under new business, we could get that in front of us. The other things, some of them can be held for the next meeting if we get hung up for time.
To follow up on that, I think we probably need to do action memorandum 20-046, which shouldn't take hardly any time at all. And I had already talked to Brad and Norma about that. If it was close to 10 o'clock, that I was going to ask that item number 2 be deferred. And also, when I talked to Brad and Norma before the meeting, that we could defer. We aren't pressured to do item 3. So if it is getting, too late, or less people just want to do general information regarding item number 3. But, so that will be my plan. We'll go ahead and take action memorandum 20-046, shouldn't take very long. And then if the council will agree to postpone information item 20-006, we do have one piece of written testimony tonight for that code. And then I'll leave it up to the council if they want to go ahead and discuss item number 3 or, quickly, or spend the last hour of our meeting discussing it. So is there any objections from the council regarding that game plan? Is everybody okay with that? Okay, good. All right. So any other questions regarding any of the reports? Okay. So the next item on our agenda is action memorandum 20-046, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute transfer of responsibility agreement with the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities and the Mat-Su Borough for the extension of South Felton Street from the Palmer-Wasilla Highway to Bogard Road. What is the wishes of the council?
Madam Mayor.
Yes. Okay, is there a second? Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve action memorandum 20-046. Discussion, comments, or amendments to the motion? Okay, Madam Clerk, if you'll take the roll and vote. Oh, I'm sorry, was somebody say something? No.
Staff report, please.
He asked for a staff report, please.
Oh, okay, yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So this is kind of an exciting item for the development of City of Palmer. The Mat-Su Borough and the state of Alaska basically had come to agreement about funding Felton. That was the borough's responsibility. I think it was under the community transportation projects that money was appropriated through. At any rate, what was required of us is our agreement to accept the road when it's completed and assume maintenance for that. This is the start of a great project. What's not in here and what is not a part of this funding is the stoplight that needs to accompany that Felton extension. So right now it's a right in, right out. Our thought is that we need to get this before us and get it moving and talk about it, because this, unfortunately, I think the state has a history of when a project's deferred, it takes 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 years for it to come back up. And I think this is too important a project for us as a city to be deferred on. So we want to try to get this in front of us, try to work with the state to try to get an additional $300,000 to $400,000 for the stoplight, which will, facilitate traffic coming in and out of Brittany, as well as provide a very desirable northwest access to avoid Arctic from the high school into town. So I think it's a great project, and hopefully this thing can be convince the state that the appropriate thing is to put a stoplight in. So that's where we are.
Yeah, very, very much so, a stoplight, that's for sure. So did that address your concerns, Councilman Best?
Madam Mayor?
Easy, okay.
For those of you that I live on the side of the highway near the city warning, and students traveling to school having to take risk to cross the highway. This is to see us try to encourage them to go forward with this project, to see that pathway to make the to high school and other more safe. Let me rephrase that. There's numerous projects around our town where safety is a concern that we all see, and I'm glad to see that it is being addressed right now, and I'm looking forward to being able to tackle some other issues that we have on the north side of town as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I live, of course, travel Felton quite a bit also, and we certainly don't want a right in, right out. We need to have a traffic light there, because, yeah, it's gonna cause additional traffic problems in other places, so. Anything further on that? Okay, so you're ready now to vote? Anybody want to make an amendment or have any more discussion on action memorandum 20-046? Okay, Madam Clerk, if you would take the roll for the vote, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Jill Valerius?
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs?
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington? Councilmember Richard Best? Councilmember Julie Berberich?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Now on the next item, on information item 20-006, does the council want to defer that for a couple weeks and then spend the time on 20-007 tonight? Yes, Councilwoman Sprinkles.
I move to postpone information memorandum 20-006 to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And, go ahead.
Okay, let me see if I get a second, please. Thank you. Is there a second? Right. All right, thank you.
Give that to Carrington, is that the voice I heard?
Mm-hmm. And then Julie did raise her hand, so I'll let you decide which one is which, So any discussion on the motion for, did she say defer or
She
postpone?
said postpone to 6:23.
Okay,
To next meeting, which is
Yeah.
6:23. The formal motion is to postpone information memorandum 20-006 to the next meeting, and I am noting that that is 6:23.
okay. Is that agreeable with the maker of the motion? That was the motion that the date you expected, I guess. Okay, all right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right. Any discussion or amendment to that motion? Okay, Madam Clerk, then if you will take the vote on that motion to postpone till June 23rd. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councilmember Jill Valerius?
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs? Councilmember Steve Carrington? Councilmember Richard Best? Councilmember Julie Berberich?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and just for a note for the file, there was, I believe, one person that did have read into the record so if maybe that could be, kept and re-given to the council on the 23rd, so we'd have that.
There's one more that I misfiled.
Okay,
It's public testimony, it's all public testimony, but I did specifically note that it was, I can't remember, that was CARES Act.
okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
okay, all right. Anything else on the postponement of that information that anybody wants to be sure the clerk has ready for us on the 23rd? No, okay. Alrighty, the next item on our agenda is memorandum number 20-007, Committee of the Whole for general discussion regarding the CARES Act funding. Note, action may be taken following the Committee of the Whole. Do you want to go into the Committee of the Whole? You want to hear a staff report to see where we are and stuff before you decide how much you want to discuss this? Or if some of you have some just general opinions or questions that you would like to have addressed, how would you like to proceed?
Madam Mayor?
If we could start with a staff report, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, alrighty. So we will have staff report.
So thank you. So I did update you guys at the last meeting, and I'm going to apologize up front. I haven't had as much time as I would have liked to devote fully the programs. However, we have been thinking about this and working on it for quite some time. So we did do more work today, and so I don't think I need to probably go through what's been provided in in the
Right.
packet. You know, there's the grant agreement and then some of the guidance that's been provided for the CARES Act funding, which, you know, is relevant and important. But I think the most important thing we need to do is develop a program and get the money in circulation as quickly as possible. So, like we talked about before, we talked about primarily focus on our attention on, number one, City of Palmer COVID-related expenses. Under the CARES Act provision, it's pretty limited on what you can spend your money on unless it's, you know, necessary, not budgeted, you know, directly related to this pandemic. So you can't build a new clarifier at the wastewater treatment facility. So that's out.
I'd really
And
like
so-
to.
Yeah. So we can't do that. So what we're proposing is, you know, probably the least amount of money that's appropriated is towards the City of Palmer COVID-related expenses. You know, we're proposing about $1.5 million to businesses and nonprofits, 4.5, and then a utility abatement program of about 1.5. And so I'll just quickly go through the utility abatement ideas that we're floating around is that, so the utility abatement program is for all utility users inside and outside the cities. There could be a cap on, depending on your size. You know, we have a couple of very large businesses that have an enormous bill. So we could put a cap, you know, for the benefit of to be limited at some point. Also, we're thinking about like a 3-month period where it would be if that you would basically get your utility paid for 3 months. Now, the interesting thing is depending on where you live in the city, depends on the amount of money that will be applicable to you. There's a lot of places in the city that don't receive, for instance, garbage service. And there are a few that don't receive either water or sewer, depending on what they got there. So the utility abatement program would be about 1.5. I think that's a little bit high, which that money would probably roll into the City of Palmer COVID-related expenses. So that was the thinking there. On the utility abatement, on all of these things, the idea is for the applicant to self-certify that they've been affected by a COVID experience, this COVID pandemic, and so that will be a part of the program. I mean, what we hope also to do is you probably all know that our utility payments are lagging an extra month, and so part of the idea here is to accelerate that back so that it's you know, industry standard 1 month deferred. And so that will be a part of hopefully the program.
Yeah, that's excellent.
The problem would arise is if that people don't apply for this utility abatement, then they would have to accelerate their payments to increase. So we're working through the legality of basically issuing the credit, and then if they don't wish to self-certify, then backing it out. That would apply to a wider range of people. So we'll have to work through that. Sitka does have a utility abatement program, so and they've passed some legislation, so we're trying to follow their lead a little bit. By the way, Kenai has a pretty comprehensive business program that we're probably going to mirror some aspects of that and utilize their stuff. As on to the business and the nonprofits, you know, there needs to be, we have about 24 nonprofits that we kind of felt would be eligible in the city, and some are extremely large and some are extremely small. We have to figure out how we can, you know, equitably get money to those that, you know, need it for the survival long-term of their what they're providing, you know. I mean, there's a lot of very large organizations that are going to be hit very substantially in the city, and we don't want to lose those. In the city of Kenai's COVID-19 business plan for nonprofits, it actually is more money is given towards nonprofits relatively than businesses. So if you have a threshold, for instance, of income of, I think it's 50 grand for the lowest, I think you're eligible for a grant almost 10,000, so 20% of your overall budget. And so they put a lot of money towards the nonprofits relatively. We have 24 nonprofits, like I mentioned. And then as far as the businesses in town, our idea is that in order to qualify as a business, that you have to be, obviously a licensed business as of March 1st. Where a lot of people are restricting and saying, if you didn't have a business license in 2018 or 19, you're not eligible. We don't think that's fair to the startups. We want the startups to be as successful as we want the businesses that have been here for a long time. And so our idea is March 1st, the start of the pandemic, which is one of the criterias for, that's when the relief is, you're eligible for that relief. So we just use March 1st. And really, all of these suggestions are just that. They're suggestions, and they're open to comments, interpretation, some other ideas. Another thing, I don't know if I said this or not, but have a physical location in the city of Palmer. So basically, we're talking about brick and mortars, whether it's owned or leased. But having that physical presence in town, that would make you eligible for COVID-related funding. Another idea is to have, which has been pretty universally accepted through the AML, is to have under 50 employees. So this kind of eliminates some of the bigger nonprofits, the MEA, the MTAs, some of those. And so the other one is to be not publicly traded companies. So for instance, a bank, if you're talking about the publicly traded banks in town, you're talking Wells Fargo, First National. Some of those banks would not be eligible for COVID-related expenses. Whether that's fair or not fair is open to interpretation. But so those are some of the big things that we've been talking about. As far as the reporting, all businesses are required to report by December 31st of their expenses. The applicant must, again, self-certify that they've been affected by this public health emergency. Some of the ideas about self-certifying, some of the examples that we're looking at is through sales tax returns versus previous years. You can verify that you've been hurt because of this, or for businesses that don't provide sales tax return in the respect that they don't, they provide a service that's not required to pay, then profit and loss for annual periods, so March through July or whatever the eligibility period. So that's the period that we would look at for eligibility for those costs. Take the seasonality out of that. Other eligible self-certified costs would be direct expenses associated with the COVID-19. So those organizations, like for instance, those nonprofit organizations that provided extra services during this pandemic, they would be eligible for those costs that they provided. And then lastly, inventory loss or shrinkage because of, having to shut your business down if you were non-essential. Some of them suffered some losses of inventory or other things. So those are some of the considerations. I promise that a program is forthcoming. And those are my comments. If anybody has any questions, I'm willing to answer them.
Does anyone have further questions or anything he said that you'd like to give some advice to? Okay. I think, is Mike still on? Okay. So Mike and Brad, I have a couple of questions. So on the information that we got on page 105, if everybody can get there, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth from the bottom. And this is probably a long shot, but it talks there about decommissioned equipment and not renewable lease particular office space. And it's my understanding, as you that are on Zoom, you have to be on Zoom, plus you have to be on teleconference in order. And so I don't know if you looked at that to see, it's the one that says if a recipient, and it talks about equipment. And it seems like to me there's really a lack of equipment for our council chambers regarding being able to really handle this type of meeting that we're having. And so I don't know if that could be something that could maybe come under there. I see lots of heads shaking yes, so I think that must have some support from the council members. So if maybe you and Brad and the attorney would work just to see if that was possible. Or maybe you guys have already started looking, I don't know. So anyway, so yeah, go ahead, Nora.
Most definitely. I appreciate Brad and the great work that he and Finance Director Gina have done so far. And more importantly, I want to say a great big thank you to them for constantly letting me ask a ton of questions. Because I'm always going to, what about this one? What about this one? I want to be very respectful of these funds. As it was stated by Councilmember Best last meeting that, this is money that we have, but we need to be very respectful and aware of how we are spending it. And that is something that I've inquired will continue. So thank you for stating that, supporting that. We will be working more on to what level and degree, but the plan is doing that RFP, looking at it. And because this technology just is not affording the ability, just as you stated, and for that reason.
Right, right.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is one of those on as a clerk's list, that's one of those on my clerk's list.
Okay,
And I've worked and will continue to work with the city manager and finance director on that to make sure that we're being responsible with that choice.
Right. And we don't have anything in our budget this time for that, right? So we're not trying, we're not going to conflict with that, right?
That's right. It did come up during the budget meetings in the presentation of where are we, what do we have? We did not budget funds specifically for an improvement of that. It was direction as I had received of let's look into what the costs are and it would be addressed later. And so it was not funded. It really has been up to date, until the coronavirus hit and it at that point became inefficient.
Yeah, made it more evident that, well, I guess we made the right decision there, although maybe we didn't think we made it at that time. So thank for your patience there for 6 months. So now we can have somebody else pay for it. So Councilwoman Sabrina Combs.
Thank you, and just adding to that, I mean, for our accessibility is great, but also the ability for the public to be able to comment better remotely and attend remotely.
Right, yeah, right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and, lots of times we do have concerns even about the sound system in this room.
Yes.
And so, we'll leave it up to you guys how far you can stretch that or how you can, incorporate that, But we certainly, I think, unless the council has objections, we certainly go down that path. Councilwoman Valerius, go ahead.
Mayor, maybe we can look into a little bit the child care with the letter. And I guess a little bit child care facilities in Palmer and how.
Okay, let me just ask Brad, because I think they probably do have business license and they probably pay sales tax, right? So they would be included in what you're reviewing already? Okay, all right, so, okay. All righty, and,
Mayor?
yes, go ahead.
Along with the Councilwoman versus it's that have and trying to give tax breaks or some modifications, but I think maybe what Councilwoman Valerius was kind of getting at is opportunity to find out and have conversations with the child care facilities to find out other means other than just standard rebates that we might be able to, some of this might be able to be utilized. Is that was you were kind of getting at there, Councilwoman?
I think some of these child care facilities have remained open. It's kind of a task as a central service because that's the central children. But now they're trying to figure out how to keep, through the 7-year-old safety part and put in their mouths. So I think there's definitely some specific needs added up and beyond probably many businesses really. So I think for that clarification.
Give direction to him, just,
And that's well, Madam Mayor.
okay. Okay. Okay, okay. Okay, so Councilman Best and Councilman Valerius, you okay now? You have further discussion? Yeah, and I think the city manager, the city clerk just reminded me, that we didn't go into a committee of the whole, and so we're just under general discussion now, so we're not, I don't know if you want to go into committee of the whole or just continue to discuss. It's like 10:20 here. You still have some questions or? The other part that I have a question of, and I don't know if Brad and Mike have already looked at this, on page 96, on Article 14, where it talks about the conflict of interest, and I don't know all of the council and what kind of businesses they have and whether, they would be applying for anything or not, but just wanted to check that we, how we would handle that. So say I had a business that had been closed down, then when it came time to deliberate on whether I would get money specifically, because that's what I understand it's gonna be, we're gonna have a list of specific people that are gonna get that. So I just like, that Mike and Brad and John look at that conflict of interest, just to be sure, so we know ahead of time and people will know ahead of time, as well as with the utility rebate. Now, I understand with the utility rebate, it's more broad, but there still could be some of the council that would request that. And so I just want to be sure how we need to handle that, because we certainly don't want to have to refund money or be in any kind of problem, so. Yes, go ahead. Sure.
Of the research needs specifically nonprofits. Some of us, at least one board, that will be applying for funding. And so if we could have a ruling on how it needs to be addressed.
Right, that would be excellent. And I think maybe even if say you're a member of a nonprofit, how that would be interpreted, or if you were on the board of directors or an officer for a nonprofit. To me, there is a distinction there, but, maybe the attorney won't see that distinction or say that there isn't, but, so.
I agree with you 100%. Beforehand, it will come through at least some of the discussion on it. We'll have it in front of us.
Right. So, Mike, are you tracking with us?
Yes, I am, Madam Mayor. I heard every word.
Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah. And thanks, Deputy Mayor, for bringing that up on the nonprofits. I had thought about that, but I hadn't written it down, so thank you. Yeah, so because that was a question. So, okay. You want some further insights or input on Action Memorandum 20-007? And Madam Clerk, is there a specific motion that you feel we need to do with our discussion, or are you okay, comfortable with the discussion we've had and we can move on our agenda?
I am comfortable with
Okay.
moving on with the agenda. As it stands, if I may clarify, you guys received a staff report, provided direction to staff on how you want to move forward, but there has been no direction to bring this back yet, as it's going to provide staff time to gather what they need to be able
Okay.
to come back. So that, if it's okay, and with you, Madam Mayor, and the council, that would be something that we would coordinate with you for a future agenda.
Okay.
That's kind of how I would see this folding out.
Okay. Councilwoman Blurs, let me just ask one question of the city manager, and then I will recognize you. Do we know when we're going to get the first check? Okay, because to me, we want to have as much done as we possibly can when we get the first check, so we don't have a big turnaround time on our side. Councilwoman Valerius, did you have a comment?
Madam Mayor, I was just going to propose that we maybe move this to the next meeting on June 23rd, if that's a reasonable time period to gather some more of this information so we are ready when we have money and we can get it to people who need it.
Okay, so what do you think, city manager? Do you need more time than that? I mean, do we have any idea? If I can have an agreement from the council to rise
To suspend the rules?
to suspend the rules to recognize and have come forth our city manager, John Moosey. Is there any objections to suspending the rules to have him come? He seems to have some information. Okay, come, sir.
Good evening. Friday, we were able at the borough to have a Zoom conference with Senator Sullivan and Senator Murkowski. They have a bill, a Senate bill, 3068, and a competing bill, 3062, that essentially wipes out the December 31st deadline and gives quite a bit of flexibility to spending the money in not such a tight area. The question with that is, that we probably need to discuss is how soon can those bills be approved? And that's what we're debating over at the borough. But it's a bipartisan bill. They're working through some issues, so we're hoping to see that. So that might give you a different perspective based upon the rules, because it is very tight. And we're trying to do the best we can at the Metsu Borough. So that is something I can kind of keep you informed, but both
Okay.
Senator Murkowski and Senator Sullivan were very positive. They thought this was going to move forward.
Now, does that just extend the time frame, or does it does it change some of the qualified expenditures?
So essentially, Senate Bill 3062 pretty much says you can spend it on anything other than past pension obligations. And 3068 has some sideboards and parameters on it, but a whole lot more than we can do right now. So.
And would either one or both of them address the, the loss of revenue for the municipality?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
And that's what they are hearing.
Okay.
And they're working through that. So, and there's been some talk. We have been advised, well, the governor has advised, you can, Matthew Borough, you can replace all the school bond debt funding. And then the Commerce Department came out and said, this is what you can spend the money on.
Okay.
So there has been quite a bit of push. It's not official yet. It's not even acted on yet, but I think there's a strong possibility. So that's going to be balanced on getting help for our community right now versus holding off a little bit, seeing the landscape that maybe have the money be more effective.
Okay. Does any of the council members have a question? And I think maybe the clerk does, so let me see if any council, no, I don't see any council. Madam Clerk, you have a question?
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
So then there was a comment made not a formal motion as I stand right now, that consideration of a postponement to 6:23, the question that you had posed and the reason you suspended the rules was, is 6:23 going to be amenable to a future city manager? Or with this information, should that be pushed out a little bit further? What date are you needing and what time do you need to prepare a report back to the council?
That's 8 days. I think we can do something based upon, so what we can do is staff can have a plan. I mean, Ms. Davis and Mr. Hanson's done a good job.
Yes,
I've
they
done
have.
quite a bit of work at the borough. Let's be ready for that meeting, get all the information. So if the city council wants to go, we're ready to go. If the city council wants to delay based on more information that we have, we can be prepared to delay. But let's be ready at the earliest possible, and then be prepared to make another option if that's in our best interest.
Councilwoman Valerius, did you hear his response? Is that agreeable to you? Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. So, okay, so Councilwoman Valerius, would you like to make a motion to postpone information memorandum number 20-007 to June 20, what was it?
23rd.
23rd. Thank you. Okay. I'm sitting here smiling at you guys and realize you guys can't see me. So, I'm sitting here shaking my head, yeah. I didn't realize you guys are looking at a blank seat there. So, sorry about that. So, we have a motion. Is there amendment to the motion or further discussion on that motion? Councilwoman Valerius, can I ask you one question as well as to the rest of the council? At that time, do you want to have it as a committee of the whole, or you just want to have it as an action item instead of an information memorandum? Or maybe I should ask the clerk and the borough and John, what, do you want to have an action memorandum at that time, or you want to have another information memo? I'm trying to find out from the staff here where we are.
Well, to put get an action memorandum together by,
Yes.
Tomorrow.
Last week,
you probably should stay than I am and.
Okay, all right.
Provide you with additional information and be able to, at the community whole, I think says action may be taken at the end and.
Right.
And we can. move
We can
forward
follow
that way.
that, okay, all right, okay, is that okay with you, Councilwoman Valerius? Okay, all right. Any further discussions, amendments? Madam Clerk, would you take the roll in on the motion for postponement?
thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Jill Valerius. Councilmember Sabrina Combs. Councilmember Steve Carrington. Councilmember Richard Best. Councilmember Julie Berberich.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs. Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is record of items placed on the table. Madam Clerk?
Madam Mayor, we have public testimony and we have in the city manager's report, specifically financial reports.
Okay. And we have another opportunity for audience participation. Anyone in the audience would like to address the council? 3 minutes for a single person or 5 minutes if you're representing a group. Audience participation is now open. Do we have a clerk someplace here? Oh, because we need to, I don't think we've wiped yet. Have we wiped since John was there?
I just pressed it.
I was sanitized before I touched.
You did, I saw that.
I already pressed it, but,
The microphone, please. Thank you very much.
turn it off. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
What about everyone else? Can't be just one person hearing me. Okay. Are you moving the camera?
The camera's already moved. You're there.
Okay, fine. Here we go again.
Okay, here we go again.
Yeah. Just one thing here. Okay, got it. My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I live in the Matsu Valley. Follow the public process. And the public process on appropriate decision made by the governing body is more likely the public interest. Some people who know me might guess what I'm going to be talking about, CARES Act funding. If there's anyone in this room that is aware of what the Matsu Borough has been doing on it, you're doing on it, school board's doing on it, but my big concern on all parties is the rush to make decisions on the CARES Act funding. You don't even have a plan. You're going to do a memorandum at the next meeting. And what about the public? Don't they have some say in that funding and how they feel about this whole thing? This is not going to, hopefully this doesn't happen again. But while it's happening now and these kind of funds are going to you all and other government bodies, we need to be wise in how we spend the money. I understand a lot of people are hurting right now. They've been hurting for several months. And there's an uncertain future for a lot of people. We do not know any business that will be reopened in our state, in our community, because of the way things are handled or mishandled by government officials and so forth, particularly our governor, the way it was held in the World Health Emergency. But the fact is, these funds don't happen every day. And you need to be careful and have that input of the public. But what you've decided at this meeting is you're doing a memorandum for the next meeting. I don't see a memorandum, a plan. Where's the public hearing? Where's the insight? You've already made up your minds of these parties or those parties, but doesn't have the public as a whole be engaged. The school board, they had on the receipt of the Metro School Board on their meeting to receive funds, but there was no place for public comment. They just had an item on the agenda in a place, and then they accept the money. But the Matsu Borough, where I attend, they had a place on the agenda for public to say, receipt the money. Not to say spend it, receipt the money. They had a place. But a footnote on this whole scenario, the Matsu Borough funding. When they approved their budget recently, they had a list on the sheet that wasn't on the website. And they had a list that said these items we're going to take off our budget. And I consider money may be coming from CARES Act, more likely. So they came up with this number. Whoever came up with it, that was blinded by the public. I was there at that meeting. This is the way it goes. Cut this stuff, and then they're going to have a place for the public to have input. Hopefully have input. I don't know. That's still in the future. But I see this rush for judgment with 19 seconds to spare, and you can't play this game. It's not right. How often do you have this money coming to you? How often our country has this money come to you? And remind you of the trillions of dollars that has put our nation in debt, and we need to spend this money wisely. At the same time, aware of the situation that's affecting all of us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the council? I'm going to close I'm closing audience participation and council comments. And we got a bug around here. Sorry, guys. Councilman Best, would you start off with council comments, please? Councilman Best, do you have?
Everybody that came in the public people that sent in letters. I'd also like to let everybody know that this week the emotions were it's very serious issues that need to be spoken about, and when we have conversations that not everybody is about uncomfortable things. So, just try a little respect, give a little more time to hear this conversation with you. I think that there's a lot of good things that came out of a lot of the conversations that happened. You just have to look for it. So, I appreciate everybody out there.
Okay, thank you. I'll start at the bottom of my page. Councilwoman Burbrit, do you have comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I too would like to thank everyone that came tonight and gave their public testimony, as well as the many, many of you who took the time to call and email regarding this controversy over the police chief. Concerning this issue, I do want to state on the record that I personally am not sympathetic to the values that the chief expressed in his personal Facebook page. I understand that there are many people in our community who agree with those sentiments, and I also believe that we all have the right to practice our First Amendment right to free speech. But I also think that a person in a public position and a position of power should know that they may be held accountable for any decisions that they make that would possibly erode the public's trust in them. And as a member of the city council here, I'm sworn to uphold the code and the charter of the city of Palmer, and this is a personnel matter. I don't know if that was something that's been made completely clear to the people that testified tonight, or even all the emails that were sent, but this is a personnel matter, and I am confident that this is going to be handled fairly and judiciously by our city manager, our interim city manager, or our incoming city manager, and I do have confidence that this will be taken care of. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Sabrina Cox.
Circumstances and the charge and things in light of the circumstances and they were equipped to handle our safety. Thank you to for filling in as the manager role. I know it's been a much larger undertaking than probably anticipated. And thank you that came to speak tonight, regardless of which file they are on. We're living in some really divisive times, and I'm hopeful that the resolution that the city comes to in the middle. So thank you.
Councilman Carrington?
Ones that were shot out for emails with letters, and it was quite something. I was there in the midst of it. And, I think, it came off as well.
And Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
Mayor?
My first meeting, getting any kind of size at the senior center. We wore masks, we were still socially distanced, but it was a good thing to be there and to be able to see folks. We discussed, we're hoping very much, hoping that the new guidelines for gathering spaces such as our senior center will be available by the 18th of this month. I've been working on a task force at the state level in regards to coming out with those new guidelines, and so we have our fingers crossed. There's nobody wants to be in too big a hurry, but we all feel pretty strongly that it's time to go to another level. And so I'd like to see the congregate dining, which will never be like it used to be, but it'll at least be there in the new form. And some of the various programs we started, I think it'll be a huge thing for our community. So this past weekend was quite an experience. I want to say first and foremost that I was extremely grateful to be able to meet with the mayor and Councilman Harrington down at the depot early in the morning, and spent many hours downtown after that. But as I said to them and to others, if anybody had seen us right around, say, 8:30 to 9 o'clock, they would have seen a circle of individuals from our community that were all different colors, all different ethnicities, different backgrounds, different beliefs, had all come together. And to me, that's a great deal of what went on the whole day. It was a beautiful thing to watch. It's not something that surprised me after 3.5 decades of living in Palmer. So it also reminded me that here in just a couple of weeks, it'll be 50 years since I came to Alaska. I told a few of the nice people I met on Saturday, and I met a teenager that had graduated from Colony in 2018 and was so excited to be back home. He introduced himself, he was chattering away, and he said, "Oh, I know they tell us this when we're growing up, but there's just no, let's go home." And all the way to a 2-year-old gentleman that I met that was here from Willow. So, but I was a child of the 60s. I was in such situations, such as Saturday, during the 60s, during the civil rights movements, and I can tell you the reason, in my opinion, that one reason we haven't had a great deal of forward movement in 50 years, unfortunately, with the human condition is the pay. And as long as we keep an open mind and we don't treat others with hate, I think we're actually going to make some progress here. Palmer's one of the best spots for that to happen in. So thank you for your time, Madam Mayor and City Council.
Councilwoman Valerius, you have comments?
Last month and a half here, definitely been full of challenges from my perspective. Let's welcome Mr. Moosey. We're I think so, excited to start to work with you as well. I appreciate the public comment this evening, and certainly there are lots of different opinions out about right now, and it seems through our emails, and it seems there are a small handful of comments that lend themselves to the middle, and then both extremes is kind of what I experienced in emails and comments that I have gotten. So I do not agree with the sentiments of Chief Shelton, but again, I would like to reiterate with what Councilwoman Burke said is, according to our charter in section 3.8, there are restrictions of the powers of the council, and we are not in the place to direct appointment or removal of any administration officer or employee of the city. That gets dealt with by the city manager. And so, I think, having that been said right at the beginning, it certainly seems like people are very upset with the city council right now. With and I some people sent us several emails to some of us, and that's certainly our right. But I have all the faith in our city manager and HR that we will come to a resolution and we'll do the right thing for Palmer. So I thank you all for taking the time and going through the due diligence with all that. I know it's not easy. So thank you.
Okay. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting.